Have you ever felt exhausted, trying to explain yourself to people who never intended to understand you? He did. For years, he explained his decisions. He explained his silence. He explained his boundaries. He explained why he changed. Every misunderstanding was followed by another explanation. Every accusation was answered with more words. He believed that if he could just find the right sentence, the right argument, or the right explanation, people would finally understand him. But they never did. Because some people don't misunderstand you by accident. They misunderstand you by choice. The more he explained, the more drained he became. The more he defended himself, the less peace he felt. Then one day, he discovered a truth that the Stoics understood thousands of years ago. You cannot control what others think about you. You can explain your actions. You can speak your truth. But you cannot force understanding into a closed mind. That day, he stopped chasing approval. He stopped defending every decision. He stopped trying to win every argument. He simply let his actions speak louder than his words. And in that silence, he found something he had been searching for all along. Peace. Because true strength is not proving yourself to everyone. True strength is knowing when no explanation is needed. After he stopped explaining himself, something unexpected happened. People started noticing the change. The same people who were used to seeing him react, argue, and defend himself suddenly saw a different person. He was calmer. He was more focused. He no longer needed everyone to agree with him. Some people thought his silence meant he was weak. They were wrong. His silence was not surrender. His silence was self-control. The Stoics believed that a person who can control their emotions has more power than someone who can control others. Before, every criticism controlled his mood. Every negative comment stole his peace. Every misunderstanding forced him into a battle. But now, he had learned a powerful lesson. Not every battle deserves your energy. Some arguments only exist to distract you from your purpose. So instead of wasting his time proving himself, he invested that energy into becoming better. And slowly, people began to see what words could never prove. His character spoke for him. His discipline spoke for him. His results spoke for him. Because a person who is truly confident does not need to constantly announce their value. They let their actions reveal it. The hardest thing he ever learned was the power of silence. Most people think silence means having nothing to say, but the Stoics saw it differently. Silence is not the absence of words. Silence is the presence of control. Before, he felt the need to answer every insult. He felt the need to correct every false opinion. He felt the need to prove that he was right. But he discovered something important. When you react to everything, you give everything power over you. Every angry response, every emotional argument, every attempt to defend yourself. It was taking pieces of his peace away. So he made a change. He stopped reacting instantly. He started observing. He started choosing his battles carefully. People who once expected a reaction from him were surprised. They waited for his anger. They waited for his explanations. They waited for him to fight back. But they received nothing. Only calm. Only patience. Only silence. And that silence became his greatest answer. Because sometimes the strongest response is not a powerful speech. Sometimes the strongest response is showing that someone no longer has the ability to disturb your peace. When he stopped seeking approval from others, he finally had time to work on himself. For years, he had spent his energy trying to convince people of his value. But he learned a powerful Stoic lesson. Your life changes when you stop asking the world to recognize you and start building yourself. So he began to focus on what he could control. His mindset, his habits, his discipline, his actions. Every morning, he worked on becoming stronger than the person he was yesterday. He read. He trained. He improved. He stayed committed even when nobody noticed. People who once doubted him were still watching. But he was no longer living for their opinions. He was building a life that did not depend on applause. The Stoics believe that true greatness comes from mastering yourself, not impressing others. And slowly, something changed. The person who once needed validation became the person who inspired respect. Because when you stop chasing attention, you start becoming unforgettable. Then something unexpected started happening. The people who once ignored him began to notice his absence. They noticed he was no longer available for every conversation. They noticed he was no longer trying to impress anyone. They noticed he was no longer chasing their attention. The same person they thought would always be there had changed. But this time, he was not trying to make anyone regret losing him. He was simply choosing himself. The Stoics understood a powerful truth. When you stop giving your energy away to everything and everyone, you begin to understand your own value. Before, he was always trying to be understood. Now, he was focused on understanding himself. Before, he needed people to see his worth. Now, he knew his worth without anyone's approval. And that quiet confidence created something powerful. Respect. Because people often recognize the value of something when they no longer have unlimited access to it. His silence was not a game. His distance was not revenge. It was growth. And the strongest people are not the ones who make the most noise. They are the ones who quietly become impossible to ignore. When people saw him again, they noticed something different. He was still the same person, but he was no longer the same mindset. The person who once reacted to every comment was now calm. The person who once chased every explanation was now comfortable with silence. The person who once needed approval was now confident in his own path. Some people tried to bring back the old version of him. They questioned his change. They tested his patience. They expected him to become emotional like before. But he didn't, because he had learned one of the greatest Stoic lessons. You cannot control how people treat you, but you can always control how you respond. He stopped allowing other people's behavior to decide his emotions. Their opinions were no longer his burden. Their judgments were no longer his weakness. He had built a stronger mind. And once a person learns to master their own reactions, no one else can easily control them. His greatest transformation was not becoming someone new. It was finally becoming the person he was always meant to be. The biggest battle he ever fought was not against other people. It was against himself. He realized that the hardest person to control is often the person you see in the mirror. Anger, frustration, the need to prove yourself. These emotions had controlled him for years. But the Stoics taught him a powerful lesson. A person who cannot control their emotions is controlled by everything around them. So he started practicing patience. When someone insulted him, he paused before responding. When someone tried to provoke him, he stayed calm. When life became difficult, he focused on what he could control instead of complaining about what he couldn't. He discovered that peace does not come from having a perfect life. Peace comes from having a disciplined mind. People around him noticed something different. Problems that once broke him no longer moved him. Challenges that once created anger now created wisdom. Because a true Stoic understands, strength is not the ability to destroy others with your words. Strength is the ability to remain calm when others expect you to break. As time passed, he discovered something most people spend their entire lives searching for: inner peace. He realized that peace does not come from everyone liking you. It does not come from winning every argument. It does not come from proving that you are right. Peace comes from accepting yourself. The Stoics believed that the strongest person is the one who remains calm in a world full of chaos. So he stopped worrying about things he could not control. He stopped chasing people who walked away. He stopped begging for attention from those who ignored him. He stopped allowing outside opinions to decide his happiness. Instead, he built a stronger relationship with himself. He became comfortable being alone. He learned to enjoy silence. He learned that his own company was enough. Every challenge became a lesson. Every disappointment became growth. Every failure became a step toward becoming stronger. People thought he lost something when he walked away, but they didn't realize he had gained the most valuable thing a person can have: a peaceful mind. Because when you master your inner world, the outside world loses its power over you. Eventually, people started seeing the change. The same people who once underestimated him began to respect him, not because he demanded respect, not because he tried to prove his worth, but because his actions spoke louder than his words. They saw his discipline. They saw his confidence. They saw that he no longer needed anyone's approval to feel valuable. The person who once chased acceptance had become someone who accepted himself. And that was the moment everything changed. The world often reacts differently when you stop begging to be noticed. When you stop explaining every decision. When you stop reacting to every opinion. When you stop chasing people who don't choose you. You become powerful in a different way. The Stoics knew that true power comes from within. You cannot control whether people respect you, but you can control whether you respect yourself. And once you truly value yourself, others begin to see the value you always had to. At the end of his journey, he learned the most important Stoic lesson of all. You don't need to convince everyone of your worth. The people who truly understand you will never need a long explanation. And the people who choose to misunderstand you will never be satisfied with one. So he stopped chasing approval. He stopped fighting unnecessary battles. He stopped giving his peace to people who did not value it. He chose discipline over distraction. He chose silence over pointless arguments. He chose growth over proving himself. Because the strongest person is not the one who wins every fight. The strongest person is the one who knows which fights are not worth fighting. Remember this. Your peace is more valuable than their opinion. Walk away when your presence is not respected. Stay silent when your words are not valued. And keep improving until your results speak for you. That is the true power of a Stoic mind.